It's your privilege to be a little bit tardy. That's fine.
I had a slight technical malfunction.
No, that can happen. So no
Yeah.
problem at all. No problem at all. These things are not always as straightforward as we'd like them to be. How are you though, man?
I'm good. As good as you can be in these conditions.
Yeah, it's a shame you're on your side and I'm on this way.
Should I turn?
What is yeah? If that's more comfortable for you. If it's not,
okay,
then
no worries. Is that better?
whatever's...
No, where have I gone?
Yeah, where have you gone?
Okay, better.
Ah, better. There you go. Propped up.
I just turned my phone around. I'm not good at these things. I don't really.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not looking for you. I know what you're good at, so that's fine, as far as I'm concerned. You know, we're not good at everything. I'm not the best at all these things either. So, at least I'm in shot. We've got a bit of an audience, so I guess we should introduce you to them. If you didn't know, you're in tune to the first installment of Dream It, Achieve It, and this week's first guest is none other than Christine Ohuruogu. I was going to put some of the things you do before your name, but I think it's always pertinent to kind of announce people by their name first before we get into what they do. And what Christine does, if those who have joined us didn't know, she's a former GB athlete, 400-meter specialist, won multiple medals in every competition going in as a professional athlete. And Christine has transitioned from one sport, netball, to be an athlete, and transitioned from an athlete into the legal sector. I'll let her explain a little bit more about that later. But Christine, you know the theme of today's show. It's more about mindset. Today, really wanted to home in on behalf of the ARCO Academy, and in particular to inspire some of the students there who might be struggling for a bit of motivation at the moment, haven't necessarily been able to, find that gusto that you might need in order to keep going in these times. Because I guess week 1, week 2 of the quarantine period, the lockdown, it would have been easy to kind of maybe just, get your head around things. But we're at the point now where we're probably all itching, and specifically the children and teenagers who are watching this. So thanks for being on the show. You're going to hopefully drop some pearls of wisdom on how to stay motivated in this period. How to stay motivated in this period. And also, I guess because I'm so familiar with your career, I want you to kind of just talk about your best bits, the achievements that stick in your mind most. And there's a reason why I asked that question, but let's start there.
Okay. Achievements that I kind of recall quite easily, I would say, are the big medal winning ones. It's hard to kind of say which one is better than the other or which one is the best one, because I think each medal kind of has its own journey and its own story, and I like them for different reasons. And even when I probably didn't perform as well as I needed to perform in some different competitions, I have still been able to take away something positive. So I always get asked which one was my best medal. I think London 2012, even though it was a silver medal, was quite a special one because I was at home. And I think growing up, Stratford was not a place that it ended up being. Stratford is not the town that I grew up in. So it was quite special to be alive and be competing in my hometown in one of the biggest ever sporting arenas in the world. So that's probably quite special because it was home. Beijing was special because obviously when I won Olympic gold. 2007 was another special one. They're all special for different reasons. So I try not to say one is better than the other because it all still takes the same hard work. None of them came any easier than the other did. None of them was a set given that I was going to win. None of them. I had to work for each and every one of them. I had to train for all of them. They all came with their own headaches. So it's always hard to kind of pin it down to one exact moment,
Yeah.
but no, I'm still pretty fond. Still nice to think about them though.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned a few of them, and let me tell you the reason why I wanted you to start with your achievements is because that's the end goal. That's the bit where you lift the trophy and it's done.
That's
And
right at the end.
yeah, right at the end. So
Right at the end.
exactly. And but at the beginning, you have to visualize yourself being able to do that, right? In order for you to
Mm-hmm.
follow through on all the steps required to reach the end goal. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
wanted you to identify some of your achievements, because I want you to home in on one of them now, if you can, and
Okay.
just kind of talk to me about the process of visualizing and then executing.
Yeah, it's a very important process to be able to see yourself achieving what you want to achieve, because the mind is really powerful, and it's really, I think it's completely necessary that you put your mind in a place where you expect to see yourself. The reason I won in 2006, 2007, 2008, I medaled again in 2012, even though the 4 years leading up to 2012 were awful. I was injured from 2009 all up until 2011. I was disqualified in 2011
Mm-hmm.
from starting. But in 2012, I really did believe that I had a good chance, and I think I believed it because I could see it in my mind, and I could see exactly how it was going to play out. In 2013, we actually took visualization techniques to another level. So
Okay.
visualization was something that I was doing almost on a daily basis, and it was and I remember when I actually went into the final in 2013 Moscow, and because I drummed it into my head so much, because we worked on seeing the final, being at the final, feeling what it was like to be in a World Champs final, because I'd seen it so many times. When I actually got there, it felt a bit, this is quite easy. I wasn't scared because I'd seen it all before, I've experienced it before. So I didn't have to, I wasn't overtaken by the nerves or overwhelmed. I'd seen how it was going to play out. I knew what the nerves were going to feel like, and I was ready for it. So I could spend all my energy not trying to stop myself from being nervous, but I could focus all my energy on just preparing my race. So it really is important that you put your mind in a place that you know you can perform in, because I think the funny thing about the mind is that when you're dreaming it, your body doesn't really know the difference between what is real and what you're making up.
Interesting
So
point.
for me, it's important to keep putting myself through visualization in the place that I wanted to be. So my body, in a sense, was preparing for that moment. So we talk about dreaming. It's not just dreaming things that are just ridiculous. You have to dream things that you know you can realistically see yourself and put yourself out there and
Yeah.
train your mind to work towards it. So that's kind of a long-winded way of explaining
No,
how
but important all the same, because I guess even from that, I've just taken, you've got to dream every step. And one of the things I try and get across to people that want to be successful is that every step up, every part of the process is important. Not the beginning, not the middle, not the end, every part of it. So, dreaming and visualizing about every part of the success is and it feeling real to the point where it feels real is something that's very important. You touched on the disappointments along the way, which you don't visualize for, do you? You don't prepare for. So I guess you're using some of the examples that you've had to deal with, and you mentioned injury in 2009. How did that offset against what you were visualizing? How did you deal with that?
The thing with disappointment, I always thought, okay, I have two options. One option is to pack up and go home, or one option is to keep on going. And I wasn't packing up. I just thought, even if as bad as it feels right now, as painful as it feels right now, as rubbish as I feel right now, I'm too stubborn, and I'm not willing to let go of anything without a fight. So that's, it wasn't, I think some people, there wasn't really like a real get up and go disappointment. Who cares about that? It was more a case of, well, I'm not going to stop. So, I might as well keep trudging along. And that's how I dealt with it. I think people deal with disappointments in different ways,
Mm.
but I think in terms of addressing a disappointment, you say to yourself, well, how can I react to this? You ask yourself, how am I going to react to this? This has happened. What can I do here? You know, what are my options? And then once you've done that, it kind of takes the emotion out of it.
Mm.
So you're dealing with what you can and can't do. And it helps you think more clearly rather than just kind of getting upset and storming off. I said, okay, I'm injured now. What are my options? The doctor said it will take so and so time to get better. I don't know better than the doctor, so I'll just do as I say. And I'll keep on. You know,
Yeah.
that's all you can do. You have to just try and find a way to keep on. And you'll be surprised. A lot of times the disappointments helps you to be very creative. So you find other ways of working around a problem. And sometimes you realize that the plan that you had to begin with probably wasn't the best plan anyway.
Mm.
And the disappointment you have is a chance for you to just maybe just redress, you know, restock, take stock, reconvene and figure out a better way to get stuff done. And so that's probably a good, I mean, just, I'm not saying disappointments are a good thing, but sometimes it is a good thing to just stop and take stock and really be forced to work with what you have and look at
Yeah.
what you have.
No, definitely. And you're right. You don't plan for disappointments, and that was the question. But ultimately what you're outlining is that whole flexibility, and being able to adjust and pivot. And just knowing that at some points you're gonna have to do that. So, you know, almost be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to prepare for in terms of disappointment because
Mm.
they will come in different shapes and sizes, and you don't really know what a disappointment is going to look like until it happens. In 2011, I was disqualified because of a false start, and that's something
You
I never
too?
would have.
There was another famous athlete disqualified in that
Yeah,
in that year.
but the funny thing was, it's the one thing that I could never prepare for because I don't even start on a good day.
Right.
So for
Okay.
me to fall start was something completely, it was something that I never would thought happen to because it just doesn't happen. So those are things that happen that you can't prepare for. And when it does happen, you're left feeling a little bit, I don't know, out of all sorts because what can you do with something that you had no idea could happen?
Well, what did you learn from that disappointment, from that lesson, from that unplanned for eventuality?
Being being disqualified.
Yeah, what did you learn from it? And not necessarily from being disqualified, because we know you're out the
Oh,
race, but in terms of just the emotions and dealing with that level of disappointment that you didn't see coming.
I think you have to just take it on the chin for one. Well, before that, I would say you have to just acknowledge it, acknowledge you're upset, and be upset, be angry, get all those emotions out because they're legit emotions. If something happens that you didn't expect to happen, you have a right to express that in a way that, well, obviously in a way that's reasonable. But what I'm trying to say is that don't just suppress it. If you are upset, be upset. You know, you have a right to be upset. Some people might say, oh, it's okay, it's fine. But to you, it's not fine. And there's a reason why it's not fine. So be upset if you need to be upset. And it does help to talk to someone about your upset. Like it was always my coach. Whether or not he agreed or was listening, I didn't care. I just needed to rant and get it all out of my system and just complain and moan and cuss if I had to, just get it all out. And he'll just nod and say, yes, Chris. Yeah. But I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for him to agree. I just wanted him just to listen. Just needed someone to just listen to me scream and rant. And then when that's happened, I think you acknowledge that it was something that you didn't want to happen and you weren't happy with happening. And then you get back to work. That's it, really. That's all you have to get back to work. I have a phrase that says, the sun will, as long as the sun always rises, the next day is always an opportunity to do some work. But I definitely think it's important to get everything out of your system first. Feel it. I would say we have like 1 day of mourning. So you give yourself a day to be upset. If you need cheering up, you can go and eat ice cream, whatever, pizza, do whatever you need to do. Just get out your system, deal with it. Have 1 day of mourning. Then the next day it's over. No more mourning, you go back to work. Because if it's prolonged, if it's a prolonged complaint, that's not helpful either. You can't work in those circumstances. So you deal with the disappointment because you have a right to be disappointed, whatever that reason is. People have different kinds of disappointments. What's disappointing for one might not be disappointing for the other, but that's not really for you to concern yourself with. You just deal with yourself, and then you figure out how to kind of get yourself back on the saddle and keep going.
Yeah, great advice for any of the youngsters watching in terms of mindset. Give yourself that time to process, get it out of your system, and let's get back to the plan. Let's get back to succeeding. You mentioned your coach, and that's a nice segue into the next question. Really, you can dream it, and you want to achieve it, but do you plan, or did you plan, to have the type of team around you that you did, or did you find that your actions attracted the team that were going to help you reach the goals?
It's a mixture of both. I think you will draw like-minded people towards you. I really do think you do. I think if you've got kind of good energy, you would attract people with good energy. If you've got bad energy, you would attract people with bad energy. And I don't mean it like in a really kind of vague sense. I mean that people will see you and see how you work, and they want to add to that. And they will want to do their best to help you do your best. And that was always a great thing about the people that I worked with. I been with Lloyd for the majority of my career. Maybe towards the start of my career, I had different coaches, but Lloyd was the one that kind of took me through the biggest chunk of my career. And, you know, I had a small team, you know, physios, sports psychologists. And these are people that I still talk to even now that I've retired. And that just shows you the strength of the bond that we have. And it was a genuine bond, and it wasn't a kind of, they were doing it to make themselves feel better. They actually genuinely wanted to help me and to see me succeed. And those are the kind of people that I attracted. Obviously, if something's not quite working, you amicably part ways along your journey. But for the most part, I was able to retain much of my team and work with them. Even now that I retired, if I have a question about something for the physios, I can probably call up 5 different physios, people that I've managed to keep in touch with, people that I, you know, come to know them and their families, and, you know their birthdays, all different things. And that's quite nice. And that just speaks to the nice, genuine bond that we had. And I'm happy that I was able to share my moments with them. I'm happy that they can say that they were there when they patched me up on the table in '07 when I was getting ready for my final at World Champs, or I was there getting ready for the final in 2013. I'm happy that they have a part of my story to be proud about. But I definitely think it's, you know, people are attracted to where they think they can fit and where they think they can contribute. But it has to be equal. So I think the reason that they liked to work with me, because they knew that I did the work. They knew that I would carry my weight and I would do as I was told, and I'll be respectful. And I respected them and their work, and I respected their opinions, and likewise they respected me. So it's something that has to work both ways. I really don't want somebody who's just going to agree with me all the time, who's just going to let me push them around. I'm quite bossy. I'm a sister of like 7 siblings. So I'm quite bossy. So I'm used to getting my own way, and
well, you need to know your own mind in those circumstances, right?
But in a professional environment, you're not always going to get your own way. I needed somebody who was going to be tough enough to put their foot down. So it works both ways. I have to be, they have to be able to challenge me just as much as I'm challenging them. But as you grow and develop, you understand the kind of people that work with your personality. Lloyd, my coach, we're very, very different people. Very, 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 very different. And I think that on an ordinary day, I probably would not necessarily have picked someone like him to work with,
right,
because we're very different. But I think it's the fact that I didn't pick him and we just ended up together was such a fortunate thing, because we're so different, we worked very, very well. And sometimes you don't always know that. You always think you know what you need, but I don't know, people just find their way.
Well, I would say odd and even numbers are in the same sequence. So, you know.
We're very, very, very different. We're completely different, but we work the best. So what I couldn't do, he could do, and what he couldn't do, I could do, and that's kind of how we worked for our career. And it was probably, I think, probably one of the best partnerships, I would say, out of, I think, from from kind of what I could see from my peers, we had a very good relationship, very long-standing, very successful relationship.
If you're just joining us, I'm Dready Man, chilling with Christine Ohuruogu, multiple medalist for GP, Team GB athletics, an all-round hero in my eyes. If you're some of the youngsters that are watching from the Arco Academy, who are putting on this series of motivational videos with sports stars from all over the world, to share, thoughts on how to improve your mindset, especially during this period. Do ask any questions if you've got any. Chris, I wanted to move on to 3 specific traits that a dreamer who is to become an achiever needs to embody.
You're kind of tying my hands together.
Yeah, I know it's hard to just narrow it down to just 3, but
Yeah.
maybe these are just
Okay.
guidelines for the
Okay.
youngsters.
Okay. We'll go for the most recognizable ones. Would say I definitely think for any dreamer, for anyone who, well, I mean, not even for anyone, for everyone really, because I think everybody is working towards something. And I think you have, first of all, you have to want it. You have to want it. You have to want what it is you're after, not just because you're told to want it. I think you have to want it for a genuine reason. You have to be very, very brutally honest with yourself about why you're going for what you're going for. Because I think that's something that's a core requirement, and because that's where your passion comes from. You genuinely want something, it's like a fire that nobody can put out. Do you mean? And that passion will exist regardless of what anybody tells you, regardless of whether it's going bad or it's going well. Even if it's going well, you'll still find energy to pick yourself up and go again for the next one. So it has to be, I think it has to be a real deep-seated passion of something that you want. You have to want it. I remember the reason I retired 2018 was because I'd always said that I had this fire for running 400, and 400 is not something that anybody picks willingly. Nobody in their right mind.
I wouldn't. The man killer, as they say.
Nobody in their right mind will wake up and say, oh yeah, let me go and do 400. Most people will probably say, yeah, let me do the sprints, or I do like the longer distances. 400 is one of those events that people leave until last.
Yeah, I never got past 200, Chris, so it's fair enough.
and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. But every morning, like, I was happy to get up and do my training. I mean, I was ready. I mean, obviously, some mornings were more difficult than others, but even when it got difficult, I'm actually going through all my kind of training diaries and my notebooks. I recorded everything.
Wow, that must be that's
like,
gonna be a great book, great
15 years of training logs, 15 years of personal diaries, 15 years of nutritional notebooks, everything.
How did it feel to go through all of that?
Do you know what? I look back and I kind of think that, every morning I was ready to do my work, and I was happy. I was happy that even if it was a bad day, I would always have something written down. And that's somebody who wants to do their job.
Yeah.
I didn't just say, oh, whatever, it doesn't really matter today. Everything mattered, even the smallest things, even the days that I wasn't training, I was probably at home doing rehab or something. So you have to want it. I mean, it's a little bit, it's hard to explain that kind of want, but that's the want that kind of, your purpose, I suppose. So, yeah, that's probably the first trait I'll say. It's that passion, that passion.
You got to want it.
Yeah, for what you're going for. Because when everything else goes, that's all you've got left. That's all you've got. Do you mean?
If that's the first one. If that's the first one, what would you say the second one would be?
The second one is, I think you have to be, I'd say you have to be quite brave. I think going for your passion is difficult. I think when you do something that I say brave, but you have to be brave to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable to the point where you can fail.
Right.
And that's always the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to put yourself in that position where you can lose all control and it might end badly. I remember 2006 Commonwealth Games in Australia.
I was there.
Were you?
I was
in Australia?
I was in Melbourne. Yeah, I was there.
Oh, that's the best trip ever.
That was the best trip ever.
That was a good trip.
We'll do it. It was a great trip. We'll do that another time.
Okay. So 2006, I remember that so before that 2005, I'd gone to the World Champs. I didn't make the final. Very disappointed because I had no reason not to have made the final. I think I was just scared. That was Helsinki.
Helsinki, yeah.
And I remember I told myself in 2000, I remember told myself after Helsinki that was the last time I was going to go to a championship and screw up for no good reason. I said, that was the last time it's going to happen. The last time you go to the championship and you leave without having done your job properly. It's different if you're injured or whatever, but I had no reason. There was nothing wrong with me. And so in 2006, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to win the Commonwealth Games. I told myself that's just for me, it was my redemption for 2005.
But you're touching on the mindset now. You're touching on the visualization. You're touching on the determination, which is the theme of this whole series. Go on, sorry.
But in that respect, I had to be quite brave to put myself out there to make quite a bold statement. I mean, I didn't tell anybody. Lloyd knew. Lloyd always knows when I'm on one of my crazy, one of my crazy missions, and he just goes along with it. He's quite happy when I've got an idea, and he just runs along with it. But I told myself, I have to win Commonwealth Games. And I remember when I got to Australia, I was reading one of the papers, and then at the time, Tanique Williams-Darling, who was a current Olympic and world champion. And I remember reading a paper where she'd done an interview and she said that, she was the Commonwealth title was the only one she hasn't gotten yet. And she was coming to reclaim her title. And I read that and I thought,
was that more fuel, even more fuel for your fire? Yeah.
At first I thought, the cheek. How did you just turn up and say, I'm gonna win a title? Like, you can't, you know what I mean? But then afterwards I thought, this is fuel. I want that medal as well.
Of course.
I want that as well. I've trained hard to come here in good shape to get that. So, but for me, it wasn't big. I didn't have to publicly declare it, but I had to be brave in the sense of to tell myself this is what we're here for. And again, if I don't get it, the disappointment is going to be on my shoulders. Nobody else is, because, nobody else has to do that. But for me to set myself up with such a huge goal and to face the possibility of not obtaining that goal is quite worrying. So you have to be brave in that respect. So the second trait is that you have to be able to put yourself out there, even if you're not telling everybody. But you don't. More than often is the promises we make to ourselves which are more destructive than the ones we make to other people. So it takes a certain kind of bravery to say, I'm going to go out and do this. And I don't know if I can get it, but I'm still going to put myself out there anyway. The last trait I'd say for dreamers is to, I was going to say, I don't want to say the obvious answers because you're not. I'm not an obvious person, no. I don't like that. And I'd say probably the last one I'd say, but it's probably a personality thing, but I'd say don't always look for the obvious, because don't always look for the obvious. Sometimes you have to be creative. You have to work around something. Just, I'm not one who likes to follow the crowd. I like to kind of, as a phrase goes, blaze my own trail. I don't follow people. I like to do what I want, when I want, how I want. I don't like other people telling me what to do. I don't like doing what everyone else does. I just don't. I like to figure out my own plan, because if everybody's doing one thing, you're not interesting there. You're boring. So I'd rather go somewhere else where I can stand out on my own. Maybe that's why I did 400. Who knows?
Well, I mean, that's probably why you did track, because essentially you're in your own lane.
I'm in my own world, and I like that. I think it's important to just be your own person in your own space, in your own time. And that's exactly what 400 allowed me to do. So yeah, I think definitely don't always follow the well-trodden paths. Just know that you know, we have so much scope for creativity nowadays. But in your creativity, always, I think, have people around you that you can always bounce ideas off of, people that can give you honest answers. So creativity is a good thing, but I think just unlimited creativity can be quite dangerous.
But I guess too much of anything is not always a good thing.
Yeah, of course.
So we're
Yeah.
saying you got to want it, you've got to be brave, and you've got to blaze your own trail, but maybe not be blinkered about it. Be willing to take advice. Well, those are great traits, and obviously you've embodied them in your career. Got a few questions that have come in. I just want to encourage those who are watching. We've got a bit of an audience to get involved and send your questions over. I've never done this before. I've pinned one, and I'm going to read them all out at the end. I've got a couple more for you myself, though, Chris.
Okay.
The notion of days when you're not motivated, when the dream alone is not pulling you along. How did you cope with those days, and what coping mechanisms can some of the youngsters who they're going to have days where they know they've got an exam at the end or a target they're aiming for, but they know how important the lessons are, they know how important their goal is beyond that, but they just can't quite get it together. What kind of techniques did you utilize to help you get through those days?
I think one of the things you have to remember, one of the important things I think will be good to remember, and I think I wish somebody had told me this when I was younger, is that, willpower, the ability to be able to keep yourself disciplined. Willpower is like a muscle, and muscles get tired. Muscles get tired, and you need to rest and recover. And chasing the dream, being so focused on something is a good thing, but you get tired. And I think that's probably sometimes when, demotivation comes in, because you just don't have the energy to get yourself going. And I think on days like that, I honestly tell people, I don't have any shame in saying this. There'll be times I turn up to training. There was one time I went to Lee Valley to train. I pulled up in a car park. I don't know what happened that day, but I just said to myself, training's not happening today. And I just drove home.
So you made a decision. Made a decision.
Yeah, I just said, I'm not feeling it today. And then I drove home. And I think Lloyd was like, where are you? And I said, Lloyd, I just have to go home. And I think, but the good thing with Lloyd is that he recognized that some days I just don't have it. And he will let me go because he knows I'll always come back. He knows. Obviously, if it was a prolonged thing where I was just not turning up, we've got a problem. But he knows that because I'm always working really hard and pushing myself really hard, and I was always thinking about one thing or the other, he knew that because of that, he could allow me just to go and just like have a personal day, go, tell me to go and watch a movie, Chris, you're always thinking. So it's important to rest. And I think you all have days of demotivation, but I think you have to understand where your demotivation is coming from. Is it because, like, I never really at any point said, I don't care anymore, so I'm not going to train today. It was never that. It was because maybe I was just tired, and because I was tired, I just couldn't focus or think straight. But you have to understand why you're demotivated. I think that's the most important thing. And that means that you have to be very, very honest with yourself. And, while you're doing certain stuff, a lot of the times, if we're doing something for the wrong reasons, it's very easy to get demotivated, because when you realize what you're doing it for, you think, well, I don't want this anymore. You can, it's very easy to flip flop. But once you know what you're doing it for, and you know that plan's never going to change, and you're always going to come back, you can allow yourself time to just take a breather. And if you're not feeling it, it's okay. Your body is not a machine. We like to think when we're machines as athletes, and you like to think that if I don't do the work, it means that I'm weak or I'm this. It's not. It just means you're human. And as humans, we need to rest, and your brain needs to switch off sometimes. There were times at training where I would turn up and sometimes I'll be having a bad day, but Lloyd will just make me work, because I think he can sense my different kinds of moods. Some moods were like legit, go home, rest, and other moods were like, Chris, stop feeling sorry for yourself, get back on the track. So you have to know which ones we're working with, but it's important to understand what you're demotivated about and why. At times like this, it's very easy to get demotivated, but you have to remember that it's only temporary. What's going to happen when it's all over? What's going to happen? You don't want to suffer the kind of the consequence of losing valuable time here to do valuable things. I mean, people might say, no, I don't really matter in a big scheme of things, but you have to decide what matters for you and make a decision on that. But it's easy to get demotivated. It's easy to kind of get bored and to get restless. Times like that, have a look at the work you're doing. Do I need to change something? You know, change the stimulus. Sometimes when it's like if you keep running the same program every time at training and you get bored of it, then you have to change to something different, because at the end of the day, you do get bored. Your body needs something fresh to kind of engage with. So yeah, understand where the different aspects of demotivation are coming in, and just ask yourself, you know, can I make any changes here? Would that make me feel better if I make a change? If it doesn't make you feel better to make a change, then maybe it's just not for you.
There's always that. There's always that. My last
Mm-hmm.
question before I get to the couple that have come through, and if you have any, for those that are watching, please send them. I mean, lastly, Chris, something I live by: thoughts become things, and you began to touch on this already. What should the youngsters specifically be thinking about during this quarantine period?
I'm not the one to tell people what they should or shouldn't be thinking during
Okay.
quarantine. I think the quarantine period is like a really unique time for everyone, and everyone's dealing with it in different ways. Like even myself, I haven't quite been able to know how to settle into this period. I don't know whether I'm happy or sad or angry, or I don't know. It's taken a while to adjust exactly what I feel is going on. We've been fed so many different stories every day, something different, and there's no consistency. And I think because of that, it's generally making me feel very kind of like emotionally unstable. I'm not sure where to put myself, how to prepare for what, I don't know. So it's really hard to kind of prescribe something for anyone.
Hey.
And it's hard to know where to put your mind, because I don't even know myself. But I would say, you know, we've got the time off now. Take time off to do what you enjoy doing. Why not? You know, if you enjoy reading.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Sorry to cut you. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, just take time to do what you enjoy doing. There's no pressure on anybody to do anything. Obviously, check out what your commitments are, like in terms of schoolwork or work or training or whatever. Stay true to your commitments, because as I said, this is only temporary. But then after that, you just focus on making yourself, I suppose, relaxed and relatively happy, I'd say. Because people deal with it in different ways. People have so many different thoughts like what's going on. And it's I don't even know myself, to be honest.
Well, let me just have a look here. A young somebody has come in and said, what do you do for mental health? I guess let's kickstart the questions from those watching.
Yeah, I suppose it's you know, I'm quite fortunate. I live with my little sister, so we just talk all the time. So I think it's always good to be connected with, you know, people around you.
Yeah.
I think those that are fortunate enough to live with people that we like talking to. I can imagine it's different if you don't like the person you're talking to, or you're living with, sorry. But I would say take some time out for yourself. I would say that because it's such different times, and I say really focus on trying to keep yourself in a positive space. And if that means switching off news, sometimes turning off social media, just allow yourself to just be at peace without worrying. Because I do think a lot of what's being fed into us is really kind of destroying at times.
Yeah,
I think it's just overwhelming. It's too much.
Yeah,
and I think there's only so much you can deal with in one day. There's only so much. And if you think of your emotions being pushed and pulled at every opportunity, so that's, you know, I don't really have the TV on anymore. The TV stuff is on. I spend time cooking, baking. I'm doing some DIY, just stuff to just keep me occupied, and so I'm not constantly worrying. I do go out for my runs, which I absolutely love. Good. Imagine I do 5Ks like nearly every day.
God, wow, good for you.
I know, I actually love it. I mean, I never stop loving running. I'll run everywhere if I could, and I love it. But those are different things. I'd say just, you know, read. There's some really, you know, chance for you to read all those books that you probably have piled up that you haven't touched. I wouldn't go as far as saying pick up a new hobby and all this, because I think it's too much. I think just learn to just be, just learn to be at one with yourself. learn to, learn to love yourself and just accept yourself and be one with yourself without having all this kind of constant assault of noise and news and what you should or shouldn't be doing. I think just try and, but the thing is, all these things I'm saying, I know they sound very nice on the ears, but how you actually do it in practical sense, I have no idea.
But it might inspire someone to actually
Okay,
just
hopefully that would help. I'm
put their
hoping that will
thoughts in
help.
order. There's another question that's come through, and it's, hey Christine, how do you deal with any feelings of self-doubt? They've got a cheeky second question as well, which means they didn't tune in from the beginning, but they've asked if there's a particular race that you're most proud of. Let's deal with the first question. How do you deal with feelings of self-doubt?
I think it's legit to say that you're probably always going to experience some kind of self-doubt. I think that's not, it's not it's not a bad thing. It's not a it's not a good thing. It's just one of those things that's natural. But I think when that does happen, you have to bring it to a place where you do remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. And that
I'm still there, by the way. I don't know why I've disappeared. I'll come back.
Okay.
Back in
I
again.
think you should remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing and just focus on that. When heading into a big race, remember, going into championships, I'm usually never featured in the top 10 of the world when I'm competing, when you go to a major championship. And that was always a great, that would always be a great opportunity for me to feel self-doubt, like I don't belong here. Like when you step out and you have these kind of really big names, people who are big in a field of 400, when they line up next to you, that's a really good opportunity for me to think, oh gosh, I don't think I can get anything done here. But I think those, I look at the opportunity and I think, well, what can I do? Not focus on what I can't do. What can I do? And I think I bring to the table many, many other strengths that I can rely on. Right. And that's one way of dealing with self-doubt, rather than dealing with what you can't do and the fact that you can't do it and you can't be here. Focus on what you can do, and that takes away all the attention from what you can't do. Yeah. And you think about it, you take the same energy to think poorly of yourself as it does to think good about yourself. Exactly the same energy. But one will give you better results than the other. So just go on with the better results. I mean, that's just, what's it like? The simplest solution, yeah? I
mean, I agree with you. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't know why you're seeing another picture of me, and if you're seeing it as well. I have no idea what's going on. I've obviously pressed something that I shouldn't have pressed, but we're in the bit that matters most anyway, and that's the questions from the youngsters, so they can forget seeing me twice. I've got another one here that came from Solar Bell, and she said, what does winning mean to you? Sorry, let's just get the whole question up. So this is where it went wrong last time. So I got big fingers, you see, so right, what does winning mean? What does winning mean to you, and how did you find the transition from sports champion to law? What were the challenges?
What does winning mean to
you? Good question as well.
Yeah,
that's from Solar Bell. Yeah, Solar Bell.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question, what does winning mean? That's a weird question. I never really saw myself in terms of winning and losing. Right. For me, it was like the winning was just the end of a long journey, and the journey is probably the one bit that I spend that I'm most happy with. I think I'm always happy with. Well, I'm happy when I look back and see how I was able to train and put myself together and really go and getting a job done. So I suppose in that sense, winning to me is just kind of confirmation of the fact that my working practices had worked. You know, I was onto something that was a positive. I was onto something that was good. My working practices were good.
The winning
and
formula.
I think that's what winning means. Yeah, and I think that is great for me, especially when you did look at times where you think maybe I wasn't going to do very well or whatever. So it's good to know that, okay, I won, and the way I did it, the different paths I took along the way were successful. There were good options. So that's kind of what winning means. Winning is just a confirmation of me, my being, my person, how I applied myself, how I worked, You know, growing up, I was always training and preparing. I had to make so many sacrifices. I mean, when I say sacrifice, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just meant that I had to, you know, my lifestyle was very, very different to my peers. I missed out on a lot, probably trying to catch up now, which is difficult. But, you know, I had to give up a lot to do my sport. And you do wonder, is this going to be worth it in the end? And is it worth it in the end? But at the same time, I think, well, I can look back and say, at least I gave it everything I've got, and I did a good job, and I can be proud of that.
Thanks. The questions are flying in now. Let me ask you this one, because it looks like it's coming from. Sorry?
What was the second part of that question? It was two parts, wasn't it?
Yeah, the second part was.
I'll find it.
Yeah, I'll find it.
I don't know how to use it.
Don't worry. I'll find it. No, I'll find it. We'll get back to that bit.
Okay.
I think the person missed the first part of the interview, so they missed that question. But Chris, I want to ask you one that's coming from somebody who looks like a bit of a track bod. Did you find the state of flow helped you on your path? The state of flow helped you on your path to and throughout your elite sport? If it was it something you would train? I'm not sure what this. Yeah. Did you?
I think the state of flow, if I'm correct, that's the state that like scientists use to try and explain how people can almost like dissociate themselves, and it's like subconscious. I think like a subconscious action. So I think that's probably what they're
they're referring to. Yeah. Did it help you as an elite athlete?
I don't know. It's weird because I think the state of flow is something that you use when you're racing. Well, that's what I use, and that's when you just switch off and you just perform. I think that's what kind of it means. You just switch off.
Was you in the state of flow in Beijing when everybody else?
I think the state of flow is when you don't really remember stuff. That's kind of when I remember. That's how I address, you know, state of flows. Like you just don't remember being there. Like the couple of races where you just black out, and then before you know, you're at the finish line. You're like, oh, I won.
So you could say you had that experience a few times, because coming home in that home straight was. I
don't know how you kind of you can use it in everyday life, because in everyday life it's a conscious thing. You're consciously preparing. I mean, there's a sense of you're deliberately getting things done. So, you know, to be honest, the state of flow only works because I suppose you know what to do so well, and because you've practiced it so many times and it's a habit. So I don't know. It's not really something you switch on or off. It just happens. I think.
You weren't conscious of it. We've got the second part of that question that came through earlier, which was a transition from sport to law. Thanks for that, Solar Bell. Appreciate that. Yeah. Okay.
So the question is, how did I transition?
Yeah. How did you transition? How did you find the transition from sport to law?
Okay. So so I did a law degree. Just before I retired, so law degree. I graduated last year. I just thought it was something different, a challenge. As you see, I'm a glutton for punishment. The law degree is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Wow, and that's saying something.
Oh my God,
you've done. Yeah.
It was so hard. It was so hard, but I'm glad I did it. It was 2 years of like torture, but I got it done, so I can add that to my first degree. I can just put it in the cupboards.
But the transition itself, though, because you've obviously made a conscious choice to do it. So yeah, it was just hard. That's all I ever hear when you answer this question. You just say it's tough. But
well, the reason I decided to do law was just like I had a conversation with someone at an event, and he was a QC, and he just said, Chris, you know, it should be something that you should consider. And I didn't really listen to him because it was just so far left field. And it's not anything I'd ever considered. Like I've never ever would have seen myself doing law or being a lawyer.
So interesting to bring it back around 360 then. So you didn't have, this is not something you visualized. So when did you have this dream then? What was?
The thing is, I'm quite weird. Like a lot, I didn't. The thing is, when I talk about dreaming and having a goal, that was when I was kind of an athlete already. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
Prior
Right.
to being an athlete, I had no intention of being an athlete. It wasn't something that I thought of doing.
Okay.
I'm quite weird in that when I get an idea, I just run with it.
Oh.
So that's how I ended up playing netball. That's how I ended up in track. That's how I ended up at Queen Mary's doing a law degree. I
So
get an idea
impulse.
and I just jump. Yeah, I literally just jump. And for me, it's better to just, because I'm a thinker, I think through everything. And sometimes you can almost think things to death. So for me, once it's almost like a gut reaction. Once I get a gut reaction, I go. And that's exactly how I run my races. You know, people say I've got a kick, and that kick is because you have to wait for the feeling. The timing is like precision. And it's like you just get this instinct that you have to go now, and I just kick and I go. And I've never really gotten it wrong. Very, very rarely. I've only got it wrong once. I'm not going to tell you when, but I got it wrong once.
Right.
And I was very disappointed. When I got it wrong, that kind of knocked my confidence for a very long time. Very, very long time. But I'm quite an instinctual person. I think I'm very, very self-aware. And I think 400 has taught me to be that way. Like, you're very, very aware of yourself and your positioning and what doesn't work, what fits, what doesn't fit. So with the law thing, it was just an instinctive thing. I got the idea and I said, right, I'm going to go ahead. I applied for my degree, like maybe a couple of weeks after that. Wow. I applied to get my degree done. I got my degree done. And yeah, I thought, let me start the next part of the journey. So the law is still there, but I'm thinking I possibly might enter it in a lot later, only because I don't want to go back to school.
You're done now, yeah? That's it. No more books, no more study.
I just can't bear the thought of going back to school, so I'm probably going to come back to law a lot later. I need to I'm still enjoying my life right now.
Fair enough. A couple of more questions have come in since. A couple we've answered already, so let me just make sure they know that we have. Your finish was really strong. Was that something that you focused on in your training?
Sorry, what is the question?
Your finish was really strong. Was that something that you focused on in your training?
The funny thing was, Lloyd always said to me, he always told me that I was strong. And he always say, Chris, I can't train the last 15. That's you. I said, I can't. There's not really much. You know, that's on you. You have to, the last 50 is just pure will and strength. Because strength you've got, will you've got, we just focus on the rest.
Okay.
So that's kind of, you know, how we trained. And there was one season where we were training, and I think we came towards the end of the season. And I said, Lloyd, I don't think we've ever gone past 400 meters. I never did 800 meters in training. There's 1 year we did not go past 400 meters. So everything was just reps of 3s, 2s, 150s. Maybe I'll do like a 20-minute run every now and again, but we never went past 400, or maybe 450. Isn't that weird? But we didn't plan for it to be that way. It was just how it happened. Lloyd is very kind of abstract sometimes in how he trains. So we never went past 400. It's crazy. So we did loads of reps. So that's where a lot of my strength came in strength endurance was. I was just very, very good at, you know, doing reps. And Lloyd would say I was like a metronome. I would just literally just keep the same tempo. I wouldn't drop off. And I suppose where the strength comes in. But it wasn't, I suppose if you're gifted that way, then you can use it. Like my sister's similar. We have the same, she has the same, I suppose, genes, in that she can be very good with pain tolerance. Maybe it's because we have 6 brothers, who knows?
We've got a young Jeanette Quachi, I believe, who's just posed a question. I think she's starting a bit of trouble. She's asked
Jeanette?
you to tell a story about a warm weather time trial in Portugal.
Is Jeanette?
She's there. Nice to see you, Jeanette Quachi. There's been a few former athletes pass through. Thanks for the love, guys. What is she talking about, though? Why are you... Hold on.
Oh, Jeanette.
I think I want to hear this now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was. Do you know what it was? Do you know what? Thanks for bringing it up. I think we can use it as a good learning opportunity.
Go for it.
So what it was, so this was my first ever warm weather training trip, and I went with Jeanette. At the time, it was Jeanette was training with us. We all one big group. Michael Aflaka, Lloyd Cowan. No, sorry, no, Lloyd wasn't there. It was Michael Aflaka. So I was with one big group. We went to train in Portugal, and this is what 2004. My first year of professional training as an athlete. This is the first year that I'd switched from netball to track.
Right.
And what happened? And I think I had a time trial on that day. And I remember we got to the track and it was just packed full of people, like just so many different athletes. And I remember I saw like Russians, because they had their kit on. You know, they're just all different people. Because you know, Portugal, it's just everybody trains at Portugal. And all these different countries were there. And they said I should do a time trial, and I just had a meltdown. I started crying. I think you cut me off.
No, I did. Listen, the way it just ended so abruptly was just outrageous.
I know. I was in the middle of my story, and
I was loving the story.
Disappeared. And I was getting to the crescendo, and you just cut out.
I did just.
It was like you've messed up my storytelling flow.
Do you know,
I'm gonna start again now.
Go for it. Start again. Listen, and by the time you get into it, everyone would have retrained. That was really, I don't know what happened. I was just teetering on the brink, waiting for the punchline. And I'm sitting there like, what happened?
I was just getting to the crux of the story.
And I couldn't wait for it. Yeah, go for it. Do you know what? I'm stalling. Okay. I'm stalling because I can see the numbers building up, and I know there's a lot of people thinking, hey, what happened there? She was just about to tell us the good bit. Jeanette, I want you back in. I want everyone back involved because I want more questions from the old school. But go on, we've got most of our viewers back online now. Sorry about that, guys. Not sure what happened. Technical hitch. Let's go in again. You were saying. Okay. Just about to do the time trial. Had the meltdown.
As I was saying. Okay. So we're at this track in Portugal, and before getting to the track, I was told I'll be doing a time trial. So I was pretty pumped for the time trial. And we got to the track, and it was full up, as typically the tracks are in Portugal. Many different groups and athletes and people were just running, and I got to the track, and I don't know what came over me, but something just, I don't know, just fear, just pure fear. I don't know at the time, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't know. I just got to the track, I saw all these people, and I just said, no, I can't do this. I can't I can't do the time trial. And Mark was like, what do you mean? What's this? I said, no, I can't do it. I started crying.
Did you?
I started crying. I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't. I don't know. Do you know, like, it's like stage fright. I don't know. I've never had anything like experience. I never experienced anything before then. And I never experienced anything after that. But it was just a real profound, I don't know. I was just so scared. I don't know. I think I just saw all these people, and then when you mention a time trial, you think, oh, everybody's going to be watching. Bear in mind, this is my first ever warm weather trip, so maybe that's was playing into my mind a little bit. And I started crying, and Mark Leflark, I didn't know what to do with me. If you know Mark Leflark, you know he doesn't do tears.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he doesn't strike me as the most emotionally intelligent young man. Cut from that Nigerian.
He doesn't do tears.
Yeah.
And they're just watching me crying. And I think the others didn't know what to do with me either, because I think also they like Jeanette in particular, Jeanette knows that, like, at the time, she's like, oh, Christine, she's so strong. She just does everything you tell her to do, blah, blah, blah. All of them saw me as this really tough minded runner who was just always training, never got tired. So I think when they saw me crying, I mean, she's laughing at it now, but she wasn't laughing then.
Of course. They didn't know how to take it. It was a bit much.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know what happened. I think at the end, I think when they realized I was actually being serious, like I wasn't going to run, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I think, so another coach was there, I can't remember who it was, but they kind of just said, you know what, you have to get this done. This is in your program. You know, don't worry about everybody. You have to learn to just focus on your run. You're going to be fine. and I think they just talked it through step by step. And I was able to calm down and to get myself onto the track to run. Yeah, it's very, very strange. But yeah, that's what happened. And the funny thing is, I've seen it happen a few times with other athletes. Like when I've been to a couple of races, you see athletes on the, you know, they just look scared, you know, and some are crying. They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't run. And you know, it's all well and good just saying, "Oh, just turn up and do it." It's not that easy, because if they would just turn up and do it, they would just turn up and do it.
Of course,
There's something else going on. And I think at moments like that, first of all, you have to just calm down. Calm down. Yeah, just take a breather, calm down. And I think I was able to, while I was getting quite stressed, I was able to try and understand that, you know, I have to do the training and everybody else is training. And yes, they're going to watch me, but that's just how it is. And if I die, I die. It's just one of those things, but you have to do the training. It's not because I come out here and I'm freaked out, I'm going to stop. I have to do the work. So once you kind of just break things down and just, you know, I think I just was just overwhelmed by the whole thing and having people watch me and having people judge me as well. And if I ran bad, they're going to say I was rubbish. And
do you know what though?
Things.
Do you know what though, Chris? And insert to cut you, but it falls in line with what you mentioned earlier in respect of achieving. You've got to be prepared to fail. And in your sport, you got to fail in front of people. You know, your kind of flaws are out there for others to see, and a lot of those are your competitors and your peers. So there's an extra layer of bravery, and one of the traits you identified you need to be successful, to turn dreams into achievement. Listen, thanks to Sarpong Photography as well. I really appreciate you, girl, for letting us know that after an hour IG live
I don't
locks
use
off.
it that often to know.
Nor do I.
I didn't know.
Yeah, nor do I. Tell us who's writing your autobiography is the latest question to come.
Is the latest question. Who's tell us. Oh, tell us I'm writing.
Oh, tell
I'm
us
writing.
your. Yeah, so I added
Oh,
who because
I have to definitively tell you.
I just wanted
there's
you
not
to
really
say
much. Yeah, I think I'm actually in the process of I review loads of sports autobiographies every year for one of the sporting kind of competitions, and so I really do like reading sport autobiographies, and you realize that it's something that's a real labor of love, and it takes a long time to do, and it's one thing that shouldn't be rushed, especially with a career as extensive as mine. I've often wondered if I was to write a book, how many books would I have to write to fill everything in that I want to say? Because I could literally write volumes with my big family and everything. But I would definitely like to write something. I think it's just taken a while, especially for me after retirement. I'm just like at the stage where I'm just reviewing my life, and that takes time. I'm reviewing all my training diaries and all my personal diaries, and just to kind of get an understanding of where I am, because I think where I was as an athlete is different to where I am now. I think when you retire, you come out of a bubble, you start looking at life like how everybody else sees it, and you've got to get used to that. It's a lot of adapting to do, but I'm the stuff that I'm working on, so we'll see. But I think it's better to, you know, take good time in writing that. I see quite a few people, not just sports people, but whenever something happens, they go out and bring out a book, and it's just rushed. And I think you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing a disservice to the people that are reading it. I want to read something that, you know, I want it to be something special and something that people will hold on forever, not just something to put on a coffee table. And I think those things take time. It takes time for you to be fully at peace with your life and what's happened, and how to assess what had happened, as you assess things differently depending on where you are in life.
Of course.
Where I go away from my career, I see things slightly differently, in a way that I wouldn't have seen it when I was competing. So I think you have to almost just let time allow it to marinate a little bit, and then it comes out naturally. It's not something that I want to be forced. And I don't think I'm there to write a book right now anyway. Probably a bit too lazy as well.
Fair enough. It'd be a good book when it comes. There's a few people that have already commented that they'd be willing to buy it. One of the questions that I pinned before we got cut off before was somebody asked, what was your, and I forget who it was, apologize. Who was your inspiration growing up?
Um, good. The answer was a good question. I get asked this a lot, and the real honest answer, like the real honest answer, was that I didn't have anyone.
I mean,
You
honesty is
know,
the
I
best
think
policy.
when we, you know, me and my brothers growing up, it wasn't like we weren't watching TV all the time. We were always out playing, you know, outside. And then when I got to school, secondary school, I was busy doing homework. I was busy with after school sports. So, you know, the famous people that I knew would have been, you know, pop stars and stuff, but not really anybody that drew me in any one direction or another. I just didn't, I don't know, I just wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't really, I wasn't engaged in that kind of way.
Yeah, didn't impact on you in that way.
When I started playing netball, the girls I looked up to were all on my netball team, the older netball players who played for England.
Right.
And they inspired me because I saw them as mothers. One was an engineer, one was a doctor, one was this, one was that. And I was just amazed by these women that, even though they were so brilliant at netball, they were brilliant in other areas. And that's really what I looked up to. I don't know that. And I think a lot of the time I was fortunate to just have really good people around me. So, you know, I had teachers that were really positive. I had really positive, you know, friends. I was always fighting with my brothers. But I, you know, and I think that's an important thing. I think we should always look close to home when we look at, you know, in terms of inspiration. And I think we should always look for those opportunities where we can be inspiration to other people, whether you're aunties or uncles or neighbors or whatever, because that's how I grew up. When I got to track, I know Jeanette saw everything in my career, but Jeanette was someone I looked up to growing up, because when I entered the sport, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the sport in the way they knew it. So I had to learn off from them. You know, I had to learn off of, you know, Jeanette, TJ. I was one of the youngest ones in the group.
Right.
So I was constantly learning, and that's how I learned how to craft my event, my sport, was because I had so many older people who actually genuinely were looking out for me. They really did look out for me. And you know, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those that were really able to help me and support me and make me laugh. We're always laughing. We're always, every day. I love training. I loved it. We're always laughing about something or another. I don't know. I was just always something to laugh about. And even to this day, we could talk about stories that we had back in the day where we just went to training just to have a good time. But we all worked, but it was fun. And those for me are, you know, inspiration. That's what makes me feel good and wanted me to, you know, to do well.
The last question that's popped up in the group, and Jeanette showed a whole load of love in there. Glad to have you and all the former athletes on there. Everybody that's tuned in today, actually. Thanks on behalf of the ARCO Academy, because this series was literally brought about to inspire youngsters who attend that alternative provision, a sports-inspired alternative provision, hence why we've got Christine Ohuruogu on as the first guest in this series of interviews. My last question from the audience, you started to answer already, but do you think netball helped your career, and how, why?
Definitely. Netball was my first love. Netball was what really taught me how to dream. When I was a kid at school, I think I was in year 8, and I remember I'm such a boffin. I was always in the library at school. I was always in the library. And I remember I got out a book on netball. I got out a netball book, as you do. And then I remember reading the book and then seeing the netball headquarters and the netball England team. I remember I must have been about, this was in year 8, so I would have been about 12, 13. And at that age, I said, you know, I'm going to play netball for England one day. I had no reason why. I mean, I was only playing school netball. But I told myself, right, I'm going to be there. I'm going to get to those headquarters. I'm going to play netball for England one day. And I don't know, it just has a weird way of working out. From school netball, I went to club netball. From club netball, I went to county. From county, I went to England. So I actually, you know, I got into England my first time round. Yeah, so I didn't get into county first time round. I got into county the second time round. For England, I got into the first time round. And I think the great thing about England netball in general, or just netball in general, was that that's probably where I was able to really express my competitive spirit. I don't know anywhere else, I'd have provided that environment for me to really work. Because when I started in netball, I wasn't the best player. I wasn't first seven, never. I was always on the bench. I was always having to wait my turn. You know, I was always one where I think, we're going to put her on today. Is she going to make us look foolish today? That was me, but I learned to work my way up. I was no way the player, when I played for England, the player I was when I first started. But because I had to learn how to fight for my place.
Of course.
And to fight. And was years of traveling around the country, never getting picked first seven. You know, I go all the way to Manchester and I probably only play like 10 minutes out of the whole game. But it really taught me how to learn my craft, fight for my craft, and also be in a position where I respected my team members, respected the team. Even though I wasn't playing or first seven, I still had huge respect for my team players. I was encouraging, I was supporting, I was, you know, learning from them as well. So I think that's what netball taught me. And I think that's a great thing about team sports. Is that you know, I always think everybody should play a team sport, every athlete, because I think, you know, I think sometimes track can make you a bit selfish, but a team sport, because I was in a team sport, I learned how to kind of cast my net wide and include other people and be thinking of other people and be wary of other people and understand that everyone has their own battles to fight. That's what netball taught me. So I definitely think it had a positive influence on me growing up. And I definitely think it's what helped me become the athlete I was.
Christine Ohuruogu, you've been the first person on Dream It, Achieve It. Thanks for being on the show today. Like I said, brought about to inspire specifically the kids that attend Arco Academy, and just you know, anybody in general really who needs a bit of motivation at this time. Always great to tune into a story like yours. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to shout out Lisa Miller as well for helping to provide a platform to facilitate this, because this is the type of work I like to be involved with. So yeah, thanks all involved. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks everyone for your questions, and stay safe, stay put, stay inside.
Stay at home.
See you later. Stay at home.
See you next time. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.